The bonds of friendship between us are stronger than ever. I am delighted to send my warmest wishes to everyone in the Philippines, the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations between our two countries. At a time when we have faced the unprecedented challenges of the coronavirus, those links have provided the foundation for us to work together towards a better future.
A British king just said something about Filipinos that caught the world completely off guard. Yes, you heard that right. King Charles III made a statement so heartfelt, so unexpected, it left people speechless. And it wasn't just a diplomatic courtesy. What he said reached deep into history, shattered old perceptions, and sparked new conversations. But before we get to his stunning words, we need to pull back the curtain. Because what you're about to discover will forever change how you see the link between the Philippines and the British Crown. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because this is one of those stories that rewrites what we thought we knew. Most assume the British monarchy has little or no connection to the Philippines. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Their ties go back centuries, far beyond protocol and politics, into a shared, chaotic past shaped by war, ambition, and unexpected human connections. Let's rewind all the way to 1762. The world was locked in the brutal chaos of the 7 Years' War, the first true global conflict. It spanned continents: Europe, the Americas, Africa, India, and yes, even Southeast Asia. Before the world wars we know today, this was the original World War. At that time, the Philippines was still a Spanish colony. So why did the British suddenly set their sights on Manila? The answer? Power and profit. Britain wanted to break Spain's dominance and seize control of the Manila-Acapulco galleon trade, a gold mine that connected Asian treasures with the Americas. Silk, spices, porcelain, all flowing through Manila to Mexico. Capturing that trade meant controlling one of the most valuable routes on Earth. So, on September 24, 1762, a massive British fleet arrived at Manila's doorstep. Picture the scene. 13 warships, over 6,000 men, cannons aimed at the city. The people of Manila were shocked. By October 5th, the British had taken control of the city. It was a dramatic victory, one that sent political shockwaves through both Asia and Europe. And the monarch on the throne during this historic takeover? King George III, the same monarch who would later lose the American colonies. But the royal lineage doesn't stop there. Fast forward to today. King Charles III, George's descendant, has now reignited the connection between the Philippines and the Crown, with words that no one saw coming. But before we unpack his statement, there's more to uncover about the 1762 occupation. Because the British takeover of Manila wasn't a smooth, polite affair. It was messy, tense, and violent. While Britain controlled Manila and Cavite Port, much of the Philippines remained in Spanish-Filipino hands. Guerrilla fighters took to the countryside. Spanish officers and Filipino resistance leaders refused to surrender. Inside Manila, things were no less intense. British forces clashed over control, supplies, and policy. At the same time, cultural exchange began to unfold. British officers lived among the locals. And over those 20 months, the seeds of a deeper, lasting legacy were planted. Take language, for example. While Spanish was still dominant, early English words, especially related to trade and the military, began sneaking into the Filipino vocabulary. But the influence ran even deeper. Some Filipino families today can trace their ancestry back to British soldiers who formed bonds with local women. Surnames like Bandark, Drake, and Dewey still echo traces of that forgotten colonial chapter. There's also the matter of looted treasures. British troops reportedly seized rare manuscripts, religious artifacts, and silver. Some historians believe ancient Filipino texts from that time still sit hidden in archives across the UK. So, if Britain held such a valuable foothold in Manila, why didn't they stay? Because by 1764, the war was drawing to a close. Under the Treaty of Paris, Britain handed Manila back to Spain in exchange for other territories. The Philippines, while strategically important, no longer served their shifting interests. But even though the British occupation lasted less than 2 years, its cultural fingerprint never faded. And here's the real twist. That wasn't the end of Britain's connection to the Philippines. Over the centuries, royal visits, unexpected alliances, and symbolic gestures kept that hidden thread alive. Which brings us to today and King Charles III. Unlike many royals, Charles has always marched to the beat of his own drum. He's opinionated. He's not afraid to speak up on global issues. And now, he's turned his attention to the Philippines in a way that few anticipated. What he said wasn't political spin. It wasn't a rehearsed speech. It was personal, emotional, and deeply human. King Charles publicly praised the spirit, kindness, and strength of the Filipino people. He expressed genuine admiration for their resilience, their rich culture, and their unwavering warmth. Coming from a monarch known for his diplomatic caution, these words carried enormous weight. His message didn't just honor the Filipino people, it hinted at a long overdue recognition of their place on the global stage. In a world often quick to overlook or underestimate, King Charles's words broke through with clarity and respect, and it reminded millions that history, even the colonial kind, doesn't have to define the future. It can be reimagined, redefined, and respected. This wasn't just a compliment, it was a moment of royal reckoning, and one that melted hearts across the Philippines and beyond. Stick around, because the story of the Philippines and the crown, it's just getting started. Imagine this. When most people think of royalty, they picture carefully crafted speeches and polished smiles. But King Charles? He's always been the one to break the mold. While the world was still unsure about climate change, Charles was already warning us. Way back in the 1970s, he spoke out against plastic pollution before it was even on the global radar. One of his boldest lines, "The earth doesn't belong to us, we belong to the earth."
They will be living with the consequences of what we did or didn't do. After all, ladies and gentlemen, in 2050, our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. Teaches us that we are all connected, not only as human beings, but with all living things and all that sustains life. Harmony with nature must be maintained. The earth does not belong to us. We belong to the earth.
That kind of thinking made him controversial, even among his peers. But did he back down? Never. If anything, he leaned in harder, championing sustainability, clean energy, and organic living decades before it became fashionable. And here's where it gets personal. Beneath his reserved, measured tone is a man who speaks out when it matters. And recently, he said something about Filipinos that left everyone stunned. For decades, Filipino workers, especially in healthcare, have quietly kept British society running. Today, over 200,000 Filipinos live and work across the UK, many serving as nurses, caregivers, and domestic aides. And King Charles? He's seen their impact firsthand. When Queen Elizabeth was in her final years, many of the people who cared for her behind closed palace doors were Filipino nurses. They weren't just staff. They were the silent lifelines of the royal household. There's a little-known story that speaks volumes. During the pandemic, Charles met with a group of Filipino nurses. No media coverage, no photo ops. Just a heartfelt moment where he shook their hands and said, "I don't know how we'd manage without you." No cameras, no headlines, just genuine appreciation. But King Charles isn't content with quiet gratitude. When injustice or inequality appears, he speaks out, even when it's not popular. During COVID, as many leaders were focused on their own citizens, Charles went out of his way to spotlight migrant workers. He didn't just thank them, he acknowledged their sacrifices publicly, especially Filipinos. At one charity event honoring healthcare heroes, he delivered a line that resonated across the room. "It's impossible to overstate the debt of gratitude we owe to those who care for our sick and elderly, especially those from the Filipino community, whose compassion and dedication are truly extraordinary." Let's be real. World leaders rarely say things like this. Migrant workers are often overlooked, But not by Charles. He sees them, he values them, and he says it out loud. And that's powerful, because when the King of England speaks, people listen. His words carry weight, not just sentiment. To a Filipino nurse working far from home, to a caregiver spending nights tending to someone else's family, this isn't just praise, it's recognition, it's validation. One nurse in London put it best. It's not easy being away from your family, but when King Charles spoke about us, I finally felt seen. But Charles went beyond words. In 2023, he supported a new initiative providing free mental health care for Filipino healthcare workers struggling with burnout. It wasn't just talk, it was action. And it proved he walks the walk. His reign may still be young, but it's already rewriting what it means to be monarch. He's not content to be symbolic. He's choosing to be real, present, engaged. He's showing the world that leadership isn't about pageantry. It's about people. And in that vision, Filipinos are not just included, they're front and center. They are not just staff, they are essential. And Charles sees that. In a formal event with global dignitaries and members of the Filipino community in London, the atmosphere was full of anticipation. People expected the usual royal speech. Polite, rehearsed, predictable. But Charles surprised everyone. He paused, looked directly at the Filipino guests, and said something that stopped the room cold. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't diplomatic fluff. It was real. He said, "The strength, kindness, and resilience of the Filipino people have left an indelible mark on our nation." Then he added, "And for that, we are profoundly grateful." Silence, emotion, respect. It wasn't just another royal speech. It was a heartfelt acknowledgement from the very top. Over 300,000 Filipinos currently work and live in the UK, many separated from their own families to care for British ones. And now, the King of England was standing in front of them, not just noticing their sacrifices, but honoring them. One nurse in the audience later said, "I never thought a king would speak about us like that. It felt like we finally mattered." This is how legacies are built. Not through wealth or crowns, but through empathy, courage, and the ability to truly see others. King Charles didn't just give a speech that day. He made history, and he touched lives.
You have made a truly remarkable contribution to the health and well-being of so many people across the country at such a difficult time. We perhaps realize to have many thousands of nurses and other healthcare workers from the Philippines working in the United Kingdom. To these wonderfully selfless people, I wanted to offer my most heartfelt gratitude for the outstanding care and comfort you give to your patients. My fondest thoughts are with the Philippines and all those who wish to join me in celebrating our profoundly important relationship.